Hello, I'm Cynthia, and my subject matter today is about legacy. What are you leaving behind for your loved ones?
My name is Ray, and my subject matter today is Movember, men's mental health.
Hi, my name's Vanessa, and my subject matter is I need to be happy all the time. So looking at expectations behind happiness.
Hi, my name's Asher McKenzie, and today we want to explore the power of words, both on yourself and on those around you.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Wilson. We are doing the IN2G SHOW again, and I have some panelists for you to talk to and have a conversation and joining the conversation with us. And of course, today we have...
Ray.
Yes. Hi, Ray. How are you?
I'm fine, Cynthia. How are you?
I'm cool. And who we got here?
Vanessa.
Oh, nice to meet you, Vanessa.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you for having me.
And of course,
Asher.
Asher, right. So I'm going to start with Vanessa, actually, this time around, with your subject matter. What is your subject matter that you want us to discuss today?
So my subject matter is I need to be happy all the time.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, why did you say you have to be happy? What? Come and talk to us.
So it's a quote from when I speak to people. As a therapist, I hear a lot of people come in and talk about what they want to work on. And one thing that comes out from the majority of people that I work on is this term, I need to be happy all the time. So I want to get into that, discuss that today, explore it, and see what that actually means.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
So, Ray, happy all the time. What's your thoughts on that?
Happy all the time?
Yeah.
I think it's impossible.
Exactly.
I think it's impossible. I actually think it's a good ideal. The reality is, I think it will pose problems.
Right.
Because when you're not at that level, then you start overthinking situations as to how can I become happy? What do I need to do right now to make me happy? Mm-hmm. And then anxiety kicks in, and then you can become overwhelmed, and then the reverse takes place. Right. And so I think that for me, when I hear the term being happy all the time, it takes me to the moments when I am happy. But it also takes me to the moments when I'm not happy. And I think it's okay. I think the balance in life is to have happiness, and then there are times when you're not happy, but you can look forward to with expectation. And probably that hope will give you happiness.
Asher, what's your thoughts on that?
Do you know, I think in a very practical sense, I can relate in a way. Okay. Not that I must be happy all the time, but sometimes we get into a space where you are known for particular traits. So sometimes you can be that person in situations that everyone feels they can rely on. And when things are not going too well, like they know that I can come to you and you're gonna bring me a bit of joy. You know, my name means happy. So it's like growing up, it's like I was the happy one all the time. So when you get to a space where you're so used to being the happy, pleasant one, but you don't feel like you can fulfill that role, you almost feel like you're cheating people out or something, and then people start to look at you very funny, like, why are you not happy all the time? And so I think it's an interesting one, because some people are just not happy people, but feel they must be happy all the time. But what do you say to those individuals who their normal temperament is to be happy, but they're just going for a space where they don't know how to be their normal self? As the therapist, you might have something to say, I don't know.
Do you know what? I think it's quite interesting, because I feel like I mentioned, as a therapist, I've probably, over the last 8 years, I've probably assessed, I don't know, maybe tens of thousands of people. And when we ask about goals, what do you actually want to work on? Something that comes out quite often, which is why I brought up the topic, is I want to be happy all the time, and I want to not be able to experience those negative emotions. So I think we have a negative perception on these, what we describe as negative emotions. I believe that emotions are like a form of communication. And so our emotions are trying to teach us something, and there's a lot of learning that can come from our emotions as well. So for example, if you're feeling sad, what I tend to see people do is try and fight that sadness. But what would happen if you actually invited that sadness in to try and understand what is missing? Why am I feeling sad? I think we need to validate our feelings, especially with those, again, quote unquote, negative emotions. It's almost like, the way I like to look at it is almost like, let's say if you've got someone standing in front of you and they're calling your name, and you're ignoring them, what they're going to do, they're gonna either shout louder so you can hear them, or they're gonna, come away and recluse. And that's the same way we can look at our emotions as well. If we ignore them, then in that sense, it might show up in ways that you don't even want it to come up. And we might like put a plug on it, but it will just come up again. So all of those negative, what we describe as negative emotions, it's healthy as a human being, as part of the human experience. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel frustrated. Those emotions are okay to experience, but I think what we try to do, especially in this day and age, in our society today, is just keep going thinking, okay, these emotions, I'll just park them to the side. I'll just leave them here and just keep going. But it's okay to address those emotions. It's okay to experience those emotions, because once you experience those emotions, you're able to process them and be able to find solutions to be able to help you move forward as well.
It kind of reminds me of the film, the little cartoon called Inside Out. I really relate to that. That's one of my favourite films. I love all that stuff. So it reminds me of that. So Pixar, big up, So. But I wanted to ask you, sometimes people say, okay, I can't be with this person because, we've been together maybe for 5 years, and I'm not happy. And so that happiness, or what you were talking about, can lead to people saying, actually, because I'm not happy, I don't want to be in this relationship or be with that person. And if you're saying it's a process, that means there can be a turnaround, I'm presuming, in what you're saying. And then, so, it's a season. So should people look at it as, if I'm unhappy or I'm about a situation, should I just leave it, or should I just embrace it? Or is it a consistent unhappiness that you should be focused, should be a problem? If you're having problems with that person over and over again, is that, what should we be doing with that?
It's interesting, because I feel like sometimes happiness is looked at in a way where we need to feel ecstatic all the time. But when we actually look at what true happiness is that contentment. Right? It's being content in what's happening in your situation right now. So again, what I often see is that people would say, okay, when I get this, I'll be happy. When I get the house, I'll be happy. When I have this partner, I'll be happy. When I get more money, I'll be happy. But all you're doing is just moving that goalpost. So what I always say is, if you're seeking happiness, sweetheart, you'll never find it. You actually never find it, because it's in that contentment of the situation that you're in. And I think something that we tend to do, especially in relationships, whether that's romantic relationships, whether that's friendships, family, etc., we tend to rely on other people for our happiness. But then we know, of course, that happiness needs to come from within, because of course, if you're relying on someone else, you're relying on an external source for that happiness, your feelings are always going to be fluctuating like that. When you're relying on that individual, or you're relying on that thing itself. So again, it just comes back to contentment. We don't always need to feel ecstatic to feel that happiness. It's just to, I guess, maintain that equilibrium, which is hard to do, of course. But to maintain that equilibrium is about being content in what you have right now, acknowledging what you have right now, but then also being okay with experiencing all of the other emotions that we tend to push away.
Thank you for that. Guys, that was amazing. Right, so
sign up for a session.
Yes, you must do. So Asha, you're going to be next. And what's your subject matter today?
So I was looking at the news this week, and I think one of the things that was hard to avoid was some of the clashes that took place yesterday, and it just got me thinking about the power of words. You know, they're without getting political, you know, there was a certain politician who made some comments in the week, and they played a big part in stirring up some right-wing hatred and empowering these people to come out in force yesterday. And when I reflected on that whole situation, I realized that we don't always appreciate just how powerful our words are. And what I wanted to speak about was the power of our words to others externally, but listening to you, I think sometimes we don't even appreciate how powerful our words are to ourselves. The words that we use to describe ourselves, the words that we use to describe our children, and how that shapes our perception of ourselves and determines a lot of the time our outcomes. So that's what I wanted to discuss. The power of our words.
Wow. That's deep.
Right.
That's deep. That's deep.
Talk about it.
That's deep. And it's interesting you say that, because this week I did an interview with a young lady that used to be part of LGBTQ. And I asked her, how did you begin to even think that this was where you were going to end up and this was your road in life? And she said, it started with, I was always called a tomboy. Then, as I went into my teens, they started to refer to me, she's from Texas, refer to me as nephew.
Right.
And then she started playing basketball. So she started dressing like the basketball players. Next thing she knew, all of her clothes were just male clothes. It was sagging, she was doing all of that. So she was like, okay, I'm gay. But it all started with words.
Wow.
And so she was telling me, Ray, if you want to help the young people to truly find themselves, you've got to speak words to them about who they are and not about what they're doing or who do you want them to become. And I thought, wow. So yeah, the power of words is magnificent. And particularly in the recovery side of things, when I do recovery counseling, we always talk about self-talk. Self-talk can make you or break you, okay? And that, of course, brings me to thinking what you said, Asha, and that is the power of words. Because I'm telling you, there are times when I'm in situations and I've got to talk myself out of it. And what I say to myself is going to make me or break me in that moment, whether it be temptation, whether it be criminal behavior, whatever it is. So yeah, I'm with you, man. There's a lot, there's power in words.
Wow. Yeah, I 110% agree with that. I think even just looking at things on a biological level, so an area that I absolutely love is neuroscience, and just looking at how words can even have an impact on us biologically. So let's say, for example, I'm holding in mind a negative word or even just a negative thought about myself. So let's say I'm navigating life thinking I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough. If I'm holding on to that, what we can see is that that's going to increase the level of cortisol in my body. So cortisol is that stress hormone. And as cortisol is increasing in my body, that is not just having an impact on me on a psychological level, it's also having an impact on me on a biological level and physical level. So I'm navigating life thinking I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough. I might notice that I become quite tense in my body, my heart rate's beating quite fast, I'm experiencing like maybe stomach pains, headaches, things like that. And that's just in the short term. But if we think about the impact of increased cortisol in your body on the long term as well, that's where we see physical health difficulties. That's where we see long-term health conditions as well. That's where we see inflammation in the body. So the impact of words, we might think that it's just what we're saying. We might just think that it's something that's having an impact on us on a psychological level, but then also the biology of that too. And then in the opposite way, when we speak words of encouragement, so if I shift that narrative to I'm worthy of the space I occupy or I am good enough, we can see again the release of chemicals in our body will be the serotonin, the dopamine, those are the feel-good chemicals. And again, what does that do to that body? That will then release some of the tension that I'm experiencing. And so as a result of that, my posture might be a bit better. My outlook on life might be a bit better as well. I might have a reduction in those long-term health conditions, things like that. So again, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Words are very, 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 very powerful. I can't stress it enough. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I've seen an experiment where there was two plants,
Yeah.
and they had the plants, and one of them was constantly spoken to negatively, and the other one was like, praised and everything. And those two plants, the one that was a negative just withered away, and the other one was just that was told, oh, you're amazing. It was just flourishing. And I think if it shows in plants what words can do, I think it's really important for us to understand that it has an impact on us. But the thing is, what happens when, Ash, I'm going to ask you, what happens when you do, we're not all perfect, and we do say things and we do things that are not always right in our words. How would you navigate that when you have spoken, words that isn't as admirable as we want it to be?
Well, the first thing that I would say is that you have to be aware of the language. And I think that for a lot of us, we are so used to saying things so flippantly and impulsively, and we don't appreciate that it has any effect on us at all. So when I go into schools, and so we do a lot of work with sort of young people from disadvantaged backgrounds and encourage them into careers in aviation. And when you listen to the language, we naturally speak, we use limited language so often that it's a natural part of our vocabulary. We don't even appreciate that we are putting ourselves down, and we are absorbing so many of the negative labels, a lot of the stereotypes, you look at what's being portrayed in the media, you listen to what your parents said to you when you're upset, you listen to how the teachers have sort of boxed you in, and you absorb that, and you speak about it. Sometimes, we say things and we make out like it's a joke because, it's one of those coping mechanisms. But you are internalizing this perception of yourself, and you have to become aware of how that language impacts upon you and be intentional about changing it. And that's why, a lot of people get upset about this affirmation stuff. I have a lot of people get upset with me, they don't like it, but sometimes in the most simple way, just looking at yourself in the mirror and speaking 100%. The opposite over yourself. And it's just reprogramming your mind to change that perception of yourself. And it's like you were saying earlier about happiness. Yes, external influences will support that. If the people around us speak positively about us, it also helps. But no matter how many words other people say to you around you, if you yourself cannot speak positively about yourself, you're gonna be limited on that impact. So become aware of how powerful your words are and be intentional about speaking other words over yourself. There's a psychologist, his surname was Fuller, and he coined the word about this self-fulfilling prophecy. And I don't agree with all of his explanations, but the principle in itself, I can agree with. That if you speak positively about yourself, you see success in the future, and it changes your attitude, your mindset, your confidence going into these situations. And not saying it's going to happen immediately, but over time, a lot of those outcomes will change.
Thank you for that.
Wow.
That was yes.
Wow.
Ray,
Wow.
what's your subject matter?
Wow. This is since if anyone didn't know how we operate on this show, they would probably think that you scripted this. Because both of these fit into what I want to talk about, and that is Movember.
Ooh.
Movember.
Right.
If you know anything about Movember,
explain.
it's men's mental health.
Right.
And so it's grow a mo, moustache. And so I bought into it this month. I've never grown a beard before or moustache, but I started doing a little something to try the thing because I realized the importance. What brought it about was the male suicidal rate. And happiness and words speak into both of those in a massive way as to the why. And feeling unhappy, feeling discontented with life, and of course being told things that just impacts that even worse. Got no hope. Why should I carry on? And we have every hour 60 men commit suicide every hour. That's where we are. And I thought to myself that maybe this year I need to take this very seriously and try and help. You don't need to be part of the organization. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that the organization that I'm a part of, loosely, is Heads Up for Guys. And it spells hugs. That's the acronym, hugs. And that's what men need. Not just from women, but they need hugs. It makes them feel happier, and it makes them feel better about themselves. And that's what I want to put out there.
Wow. So in that, when you say men, in terms of their mental health, are there things that stops men from, because they say that women love to communicate and talk and express their emotions, and you know they might have a sisterhood and speak words of affirmation over them and have that connection, but men are not necessarily like that. They don't operate in that way. So do you think those are like things that are impacting the mental health of men, and if so, how do we resolve it?
Yeah, and I think and I'm me, I enjoy my sauna and steam and all those things.
Me too.
But when I go in there, it's men. Most of them guys, it's men in there, and we talk. I mean, we're proper. I go on the radio and I talk about my therapy sessions in the sauna. You know what I mean? Because we really talk. So there are areas where men feel safe to talk, and I think that we need to really look at those and push men in those directions. If a man wants to be a part of an organization that goes to the sauna or goes to football or goes to those things, let them go. Let them not feel that I got to stay home, man, because I'm going to get beat up if I don't stay home or bad. Let them go, because that may be something that may save their lives. So that's one of the things I would say. Direct men to safe places or areas where men can talk.
What about, so when you say that, what came into my mind, and I've always thought this for many years, but you just reminded me that when we think about, for example, in the church environment, would you think that rather than maybe having a conference for men, maybe have a sauna event for men?
100%. Ladies do it all the time. I preach for women's ministry. Okay, they went to East Grinstead, and I went up there, and I was the only man with them, and the whole weekend was about pampering. They were in the whole thing, and I'm like, well, hold on a second. Now I couldn't go into those areas because it was women owned.
Yeah.
So I had to stay in my hotel room. But I'm saying, that's men's ministry needs to be about that. It needs to be about taking the time to relax and think. The other thing that was mentioned is stress. The expectations. When a man is not fulfilling expectations, he feels less than. And so at that point is where he was low, and unexpectedly, the thought may come into his head. And he may be on the way home, oblivious to what's at home, but because of what he perceives home may bring to him, then he's thinking, I'm not going home. And when you get the phone call, it may be something has happened along the way. Wow. And so men's mental health is very complex, but with 16 plus, 16 to 40, I should say, 80% of all suicides fall within that category.
Wow.
Okay, that is young people. That's not old folk like me, that's young people. And I really think we talk about gun and knife crime, but suicide kills more people than gun and knife crime ever will. And we don't seem to talk about it. We don't seem to march or protest. We don't seem to do TV programs around it. And so I thought today it would be a good time to raise the awareness of the dangers. 800,000 men die across the world from suicide. 20 times that attempt it but don't die. Women attempt it more than men, but men are more fatal. And so they use objects as opposed to a pill, because they want to really do themselves damage. And so I just feel that, with what we talked about today, we've got a whole mental health package here that we can sell to the world.
So, Vanessa, what is your thoughts on that? I mean, being a therapist, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, do you know what? It's really interesting because with that research, you know, when you initially hear it, it's quite alarming, but at the same time, not surprising.
Yes.
Yeah, it's alarming but not surprising. And it reminds me of, so a while ago I did some work in a school, and it's so interesting because they gave me all the young men. They gave me particularly all the young black men. I think, of course, I was the only black therapist in that environment. So yeah, we don't need to explain that. So one of the things that I noticed was on their referral forms, there was a common theme with the young black boys that I was given. And that common theme was anger. And it's quite interesting because, again, when we're looking at anger, when you actually sit down to speak to the young person, they're probably grieving.
Right.
They're sad, they're in pain. But of course, the easiest emotion to tap into is anger. So then that shows up as antisocial behavior, it shows up as challenging behavior in the classroom, etc. And of course, because I understand the demands of teachers and the community, etc. So they're looking at that behavior on face value. And so one of the things that I found was really, really, really key is approaching our young black people, young black men, or even just men in general, or even just everyone in general, is coming from an approach of compassion and understanding that beneath the surface of what we're seeing, there's probably a lot of pain. And sometimes we just want to be heard, just want to be listened to, just want to be held. And so being able to provide that space, I felt very honored that these young people can actually come to me and say, this and that has actually happened at home, or this and that has happened in the family, which is why I'm feeling this way, rather than just looking at it on a surface level. So I think one of the key things that is really important for us to really approach situations like this by is using compassion and understanding and looking beneath the surface, because there's always more.
Wow.
Yeah.
Asha, what do you think?
I think this is an amazing topic. I've lost 2 male friends to suicide before, it's a real issue. I think sometimes when an issue is distant, or we just see it in the media but we haven't experienced it personally, it doesn't resonate the same way with us. But one of my biggest concerns, and something I've become more intentional about, is you need to be a little bit more forceful or intentional about how you check up on men. And I think I have been in situations where, you know, where people have had suicidal thoughts or been in the process of wanting to go through with it. And I find that dealing with females, they tend to reach out a lot more or show more signs, or you can sort of sense that something is not right. And when you try to dig into it, a lot of the time they're quite forthcoming. Whereas for men, they will sit here with you today laughing and joking and giving such a positive front that it's quite an unexpected occurrence. And I think we have to be very intentional about checking on our men, our fathers, our sons, our friends at school, no matter how positive and happy they may be. If you know that there are things going on in their life and they're just giving you the default answers, don't be afraid to compassionately press a little bit further and create those safe spaces where we can speak together. And just to add to the safe spaces, I think it's a problem that affects all men. I don't want to neglect any group, but my personal experience is in West Indian homes, we are typically not as affectionate as men as a lot of other groups. So from a young age, you are taught that you have to be tough and you have to be really resilient, and you mustn't show a lot of these weaker or feminine emotions. So naturally, you don't start to express yourself when you are feeling certain emotions. You almost feel embarrassed to have those conversations. And I think for us, if we start earlier with our own children and we can kind of break that. I know my granddad hugged me a couple years ago for the first. I didn't even know how to react. And the thing is, I know that he loves me. It's never been a thing that I felt unloved, but it was one of the most bizarre scenarios that I was in my late 20s when I got my first hug from my granddad. It was wild. My dad, I love my dad, but I don't think I've ever hugged my dad since, or maybe when I was about 3 or something, you know. But I think it starts with something as small as that. Just creating spaces in our homes where, as young males, we are allowed to express our feelings and our emotions and speak about them, and not be made to feel any less than, or made to feel that that's a sign of weakness or anything like that. And then that's how we can start to rewire our minds and the way we approach mental health, I think.
Yeah.
Wow,
Beautiful.
thank you guys. That was
beautiful.
No, I didn't script this, by the way, as if anyone's watching. But it's amazing.
Yeah.
It makes sense. But thank you guys. My subject matter today is I want to talk to you guys about legacy, right? In the sense that, so I read in the newspaper that one of the Dragons' Den, you know, one of the ladies called Hilary Davey. She died and she's worth like, I think, £80 million, and she didn't leave no money to her child. Now, I want to find out what you guys think about legacy, leaving something behind for your children. Is that something that, or leaving something behind for anybody? Actually, I'll say children more than anything. Do you think that's a wrong thing to do? Because I've heard some stuff about it's prosperity gospel if you do that, and some other little comments, because I did a little bit of research on it, but I want to hear your views on that. And Ray, I'll start with you, because you're like, I can see your face going.
Well, I'm the nearest to death.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say that.
According to the Bible, 70, I'm approaching it rapidly. But it's interesting. Me and my mother had this conversation.
Oh, wow.
And my mom told me straight, I'm not leaving you anything.
Oh, really?
Okay? I'm not leaving you nothing. I'm going to the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren. It's all going to them. So I say, Mom, but wait, I got to live after, you know what I mean? So I was trying to, but for me, I think that it is always good to leave something. Now, if you are passionate about a charity or a trust, then I understand that, and you may want to give to that. But I think that one thing I've learned, I've been to graduation of our children while I was at Oakwood, and a lot of people come there who are not looking like me, with keys to homes and keys to cars and trust funds. My people come with balloons and flowers. Dot, dot, dot. If you understand what I'm saying. So I think legacy is important. My father, when he passed away, he left us the estate that he had in Grenada, and he wants that to stay within the family. Legacy. So we have a place to go, his grandkids and great-grandkids and down. So I think legacy is important. And I tell you, man, you ain't getting the best the best mangoes in the world are in that place. And every time I go and I bite into a mango, I think, thank you, Dad.
What do you think, Vanessa? What's your thoughts on that legacy?
I think I agree. I think it's important to leave something behind. I think even just thinking about, I'm always going to come from a mental health perspective, always. And I think sometimes the struggles that come with having to rebuild and start again can be a lot, and can even take away from you living the life that you need to live, and even you being able to fulfill the purpose that you need to fulfill. So I think if I can do anything in my power so that the generations that come in next do not have to struggle as much as I have, I've struggled, or the people before me have struggled, then I think that is something that I would feel happy to do, just so that they are set up to be able to thrive and continue running that relay, if that makes sense. So we're passing the baton on rather than having to like run backwards again and then try and rerun the race. And I think, that can be something that, if someone's trying to build and you're taking the building blocks away from them, when are they going to be able to reach the top? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think for me personally, I think it's very important.
What do you think about from a mental health point of view? Do you think that when a legacy is left behind for a child or something, do you think that is almost like you're putting in a trust, like you're trusting them to say, you know what, this is what I've done and I'm past. Do you think that it helps the self? That's what I was thinking. Is it an empowering thing, self-esteem booster in a way as well for the child to think that, oh, my mum or my dad has done something and they trust me to have that house, to have that thing. Because I think that the opposite could be true, where if they don't leave you anything, it's almost like they don't believe in, they don't trust me, they don't believe in me. And that's what I mean,
yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. I think it's very empowering from my perspective anyway. And even just thinking about needs of a human being, if you are spending majority of your time focusing on your basic needs, then that's going to be quite difficult for you to reach what we describe as self-actualization, which is being that person that you need to be, reaching the goals that you want to achieve as well. So if, again, you're living your life with knowing that you have been trusted, you're more likely to be able to actually make healthy risk decisions when it comes to finances, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to your career and things like that. But the opposite is true. If you're navigating in life thinking, I'm not trusted, then how is that going to have an impact on you being able to, again, be the person that you need to be?
Oh, thank you, Vanessa.
To be honest, I have two thoughts on this, and the first one is, when I think of legacy, I think it goes beyond material wealth.
Yeah.
Not everyone has anything to leave behind, and some people might look at that and think, well, what's the point? Why should I try? But I think of my grandmother died about 20 years ago now. But it feels like she died at the beginning of the year, because so many of the lessons that she taught us, that she taught my parents, so many of the sayings, so many of the principles, they have been passed down and continue to be passed down. That even my youngest siblings, who never met her, can tell you half of her greatest sayings and experiences. And so I think legacy is not always just about material wealth, but it's what have we left for the generation after? What have we taught them? What have we empowered the younger generation to do moving forward? So I think it's not always material wealth, but what more can we leave to our families and our children that are going to impact them positively for years to come? And the second point for me is 100%. I think it goes, because we've spoken about family, so I'm just looking at further afield. I think it goes into even our career achievements as well. I think within, even within this country, there are many spaces and industries that we are underrepresented in, and I think sometimes when we break into some of these industries, we almost like being the exclusive one there, and we don't try to open the door for anyone else. But I think, I don't know, I can speak for myself personally, there's a level of satisfaction that comes from understanding your journey to get there, knowing how much of a struggle and a fight it was to get there, and thinking, I am now in a position to then support those coming up after me, not because but if people have aptitude and the ability to do it, but for other reasons they just are unable to pursue it, then what can I do to change that? So that when I retire or when I die, is it going to be exactly the same for the generation after me, or do I know that I have done everything in my power to make it more accessible, to make it fairer, to give everyone the equal chance and opportunity to get there? So I think, yes, by all means, material wealth, I think it's good to pass it on, but I think we need to think broader. What else can we leave for the generations, our family, the communities that are coming up underneath us? And that is what legacy means to me.
I agree with that.
Asha, if your mom and dad said they're not leaving anything for you, would you be, and I say leave anything, I'm not about knowledge or passed on information, but financial, estate, stuff, would that affect you? Would you feel a way about that?
just busted both.
Do you know, I think it all depends on the context, is what I would say. Like, I mean, it depends where else that would go. So, you know, if they skipped over me for, say, my younger siblings, I wouldn't feel any way about it. And it's like, when I started my the new role that I was in now, one of the first things that they handed us was this thing. You can sign off that if something was to happen to you, they would pay 3 times your salary out to these nominated individuals. And I had the conversation with my parents and I said, I love you very much, but this is all going to my younger siblings in that case, because I feel that as an older sibling, I have a responsibility to take care of them. So I would be comfortable if my parents were trying to take care of them, because even if it came to me, I would use it on them anyway, the vast majority of it. So, but that's why I say it depends on the context, because if they just decided we're going to give it all back in like inheritance tax or I don't know, something to the government, then I'd be like, come on guys, do better than that. Don't do that, come on. Like, come on.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah.
What about yourself, Vanessa? What do you feel away?
Do you know what? It's interesting because even I feel like for me, so my mum came to the UK from Ghana about, let's say, when she was around 18, 19. And I think even just that journey that her amongst, you know, some of our parents, our grandparents, the journey that they would have taken, that itself, even just the mental strain, the physical strain, having to learn a new language, all of that, that's a lot of work. So for me personally, I feel like that journey that my mom took, that risk that she took, because even just to think of me now, having to relocate at 18 years old to a whole nother country, to navigate a whole new world, it's a lot. So for me, I think of it in the sense where what she has done is enough, because that has set me up for where I am now. And so I always say that I'm living my ancestors' wildest dreams, because what I'm able to do now, maybe my mum and her mum and, you know, her mum, so on and so forth, wouldn't have imagined themselves being able to do these things now. So that position that I'm in, I think that itself for me is enough. And so now that I'm in this position and I'm able to, you know, create more building blocks, they've passed the baton on. So now it's up to me to set up whatever I want to set up, whether that's financially, whether that's emotionally, whether that's create or having a safety net for the generations beyond me as well. So yeah, that's my response. I think what they have done for me is enough. And so I'm going to do what I need to do next for the next generation.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you for joining me on the IN2G show this time round, and I look forward to Thank you, as always. It's been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to have another conversation. Right, so we've done it now. We've had another conversation. If you have any comments, any feedback, please let us know. And as always, there's going to be information in the bio to let you go to counsellors, therapists that can support you through your journey. Goodbye.